What is going on, dudes? Oh, yeah. It is Wednesday, the 21st. We're back into normal days again. No more memeing. It's back to work. Yeah. Hanging out. Shot the link out to Kayla and Carl. Not sure how long I'm going today. We're going to relax here, have some coffee, start waking up. Yeah, I gotta try and get started on those sketch cards today. The Alterna ones I gotta do and everything. Kind of want to do like a battle damaged Captain America, but I don't know. The too many choices really throws me off. But yeah, we're hanging out. I'm working on Alterna stuff. Lots of Ransomverse things, more Cade, more Voidwalker. Figuring out the Voidwalker extend or collected campaign right now. Keep wanting to say extended for some reason. Podcast didn't go up last night on the Patreon because I was out for most of the day, and then I hopped on with Rob. But I'm putting that on after the stream today. Got to pull the title for it, and then I can put that up. And we got our first inking video from Ryan to put up as well. It's a busy day for the Patreon feed. Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. I know Ryan's got more inking videos in the works. I think he's doing one a month to start out, and we'll see how it grows. Gotta get the first tutorial out to Kevin. The house stuff just sort of sidetracked all of that. But we're doing great. Everything is going great. We're ahead of schedule. Things are insane. Yeah, going better than expected, and we're all real excited over here. Looking into getting a pallet of Gemini mailers currently, which is insane. And actually wildly reasonable. Yeah, looking into that, figuring out the viability of helping other indie creators as much as possible. We're looking into all that, whether it's going to be some sort of zine where we open up some space for indie guys to do their own thing or what. I'd like to have a little bit more like wiggle room financially to do that, so we're going to hold off on that, but eventually we will have a showcase spot to show off dudes, and we're going to be helping a few select people that we reached out to get their books out to a bigger audience if everything goes according to plan. So it's really exciting. We're legitimately helping out the up and coming generation of dudes and trying to get them a book out. What's up, Carl?
What's up?
Not much, man. Relaxing today. Not gonna force myself to do so much work because I'm running myself ragged.
Wasn't trying to like just go crazy with it. You know, that cover I showed you. Remember, like the loose pencils for it. Really, just want to get the whole pencils done for that, like tight pencils done.
Tighten it up
today. Yeah. And the whole left side of it, like I'm perfect with the front. The front, I'm like perfect. I love it. But then on the there's this shit missing on the left side, you know.
It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It just sort of, it's one of those things where I keep I want it to feel good when you look around it, because it's a trade. I know that it will never be seen flat, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a splash cover, a 2-page cover or whatever, but I want it but it's also not like it's a front and back cover. So they sort of they can't just be one piece, but they have to be one piece, but also be two pieces that work well together. You know,
it needs to make sense as a wraparound, but also each side needs to stand alone on its own.
Yeah, and I feel like it has to read that way. Like it has to read that you're turning it around. You know.
Yeah. I think you're nailing it, man. The Tatiana piece you showed off on stream the other night, chat was going ape shit for.
Oh, thanks.
Very, very good stuff. Carl is not one of the indie creators we were talking about helping. He is crushing shit all on his own. He never needs our help. He's like, we're around if he wants it, but there's indie dudes. I mean, like just starting out indie dudes that are not in the middle of already doing their first book, but we're gonna be helping Carl too for sure. But like we got some surprise dudes that are like, one of them is still in college at the moment, essentially for art, and is trying to branch out into sequential art and get it all up and going. We thought it would be really cool to have him have his first book under his belt before he's even out of school. And if it's something like actually good and with a legitimate writer, that's huge. We got
that's
a lot of
badass.
plans.
And also, when you do that shit in college, your professors love you.
Yeah.
I got that. I got like a legit, like government sort of sponsored, like this guy who was doing these charity sort of books that would get funding and stuff for it. And he gave me like my first gig right as I was leaving college. And I went from being like the biggest pain in everybody's ass in college because I fucking hated it. And I hated everyone. I hated all my tutors. Yeah. They were all fucking losers. And all the fucking peers were all losers too. And it went from like, oh, Carl's just this asshole, to like, oh yeah, Carl, you don't have to, like, don't worry about these projects because it's just that way it's all done now. Like college now, if you get a gig or you do something successful, it's just it's them. That's their portfolio, is you doing something. So and that's they don't have to do anything. I was getting taught professional practice from someone who wasn't ever a professional.
Yeah, and that's like I stress all the time, like the artist is the more important component. Yes, at the end of the day, I know I'm a writer. I was also an artist before I completely destroyed my hands. So I know like also what goes into even doing a page. I've never released my own comic book where I did the art. I have pages from like high school up to like my mid-20s that I'd probably never show anyone because I hate all that shit now. And I look back on it and it reminds me that like I was just starting to get to a place where I kind of liked my stuff, and I straight up like broke both of my hands. And just like never went back to it, got full tilt in writing, and found out I'm a much better writer than I was ever an artist. And that works for me, but that like glomming on to artists and like using them to ride into a career is still a real big thing in fucking comic books. Like there's a lot of writers that I don't think are very good that just
it's literally what
put on with a great
art
artist.
Institution is made up of.
Oh yeah. Well, like there's always going to be like a disparity to like the quality of artists compared to writers. You're not guaranteed that just everybody's going to kick ass. Same way, you could be the best writer in the world at Cal Arts. It doesn't mean you're going to have a great artist to team up with.
Yeah. But at the same time, there's also like in some way there's sort of a need for it. It's one of the things that I struggle with so much is I have this enormous workload. Like no matter how small the project is, it's an enormous workload because I'm doing it all. And then on top of that, you have promotion. Like you actually have to get out there and be funny and be cool and act like a
and that's why like the Death Curse thing started for us, was like everybody's doing the YouTube thing, we want to do the YouTube thing, but how can we take it further? And sort of behind the scenes have our own like business model and business plan that isn't so business oriented. It's more of a rising tide lifts all ships sort of push where we know not everybody can stream every day or anything, but if the whole group is hitting on different days each week and we're all promoting each other and stuff like that, and there's a lot of cross pollination, it goes a very long way. What's up, Rex and David? Sorry, guys. I saw you. I'm just talking to Carl here. You guys can soothe me with your voices while I work on this midget comic. Good stuff. Yeah, it's that's what it's all about.
Is it like a small comic, or is it like is it a mini comic, or is it a comic about midgets?
Could be both.
I got some of those. I was sent some of those Masters of the Universe like mini comics that came with the toys in the 80s. And I was like, these are so cool. I'd love to do some like goofy fucking comics like this.
Oh yeah, I love that sort of
Max
shit.
Texera and Bruce Timm and fucking Alfredo Alcala, the guy who inked all of the Conan shit, all the great Conan stuff.
Yeah.
Those guys did all those books. Did all those
Texera? Like... Oh, I think no, I don't know if it's him. I don't want to say it if it's wrong, but I think Jay Krager learned under one of those dudes. I think it's Texera, however you say his name. I'm pretty sure Krager like learned under him, or maybe like with him. It might not have been like a mentor mentee thing.
I'm not familiar with Jay Krager.
He did the Kill Journal, if you've seen any of that, with Adam Lawson. Slasher book, and then he's doing his own thing, Hammer, that I think is sort of like a Norse superhero sort of thing.
I've seen that.
Cool dude. I don't know him personally, but I like his stuff. I dig him as just a human being. He's another kind of no bullshit dude from what I've gathered, and he does a lot of like 3D sculpting and stuff like I do. So there's a lot of overlap there. I followed him for a while, but he's I'm pretty sure him and Ryan Wynn are pretty good friends. Like they sort of came up in the industry around the same time. And I always forget that like a lot of these guys going indie are like dudes that like busted their ass in the mainstream for decades and basically got used like workhorses. Like Ryan should be on tons of books. The dude is one of the best inkers to ever grace the industry. And I don't think a lot of people realize how like prolific that dude's work is because he just wasn't credited on like a good 80% of it. Like he inked on Spawn, tons of shit, like tons of Top Cow stuff. He learned under Danny Meeke. I think he was part of Crime Lab Studios, which was Meeke's back in the day.
Was it just like fill-in jobs? Like
no, he was doing full books. He was doing fill-ins, backgrounds.
And he wasn't credited?
He was credited on a lot of the full book stuff, and he got credit on stuff as he went out on his own. But early on, when he was like Meeke's assistant and learning dude and just flying through stuff, he's got insane stories. Like I think he inked on the issue they took. They removed smoking from Wolverine's repertoire. I'm pretty sure he told me he was in the room for the phone call when they told them they had to ink out all of the cigars.
Jesus.
Yeah, like Ryan has been around, and he's basically like number one inker that helped relaunch like the successful Valiant with Dinesh back in the day. This is all shit I've been telling him he like needs to talk about on the podcast at some point. Like we need to just do like an episode. He makes Paul Miotti look like a poser. Paul Miotti's cool too, but he's fucking cares too much about what people on the internet think. You can see him losing up to it now.
Takes his dumb fucking takes he comes out with every few months. He comes out with some fucking stupid idiot.
He's another one of those pros that I've met like multiple times, not in a con scenario, that just never remembers me either. So like I don't have time for those people. Like if you can't remember your peers that you've met on multiple occasions, how do I believe that you're actually like genuinely engaging with your fans and like bringing more people back into comics? And that's what kills me is I genuinely think comic readership has completely fallen off because the vast majority of creators and stuff don't give a shit. There aren't good experiences anymore, even at cons. A lot of conventions you go to, and it's like you see one kid pumped, and every kid in there should be screaming full blast. It should be obnoxious to be inside of a comic convention and impossible to be there. Not just because of the BO. It should be because children are losing their fucking minds at how cool everything is. And that's fewer and further between with like every year I would go to a convention, and it is like for every excited kid that showed up to see the books, there was 30 people who just looked like they wanted to be anywhere else in the world. And I'm like, that's because it's not like fun. It's not like the Image days where it felt like you were going to meet fucking the lineup of Motley Crue and you got a signature from every Image creator in the building. And it was a big party.
I've found that the audience has changed. In my little time that I've been in it, and I was in it like very young teen, going to them, hanging out, and then like early 20s, like 19 to like 21 before I got like blacklisted doing cons. I noticed a fucking change that it was like there was a complete shift. There was the weirdo cons that like you were all fucking weirdos. Like everybody who went there was weirdos, and then it was like a complete cultural shift.
Everybody outside of their fursuit and
and then there was like the complete shift, and it's like essentially it's like family day out, and these people they know it's something you're supposed to dress up for or whatever. They get a costume off the shelf, some like muscle suit Captain America costume or whatever, and they put it on and they go out, and it's like family day out, and they step inside and they realize that there's nothing to do but queue for like D-list celebrities and get photos with them.
Queue for that or buy something you're unfamiliar
so they're just
with.
wandering around like looking for like where the Funko Pops are, and they just wander by you, and you're like,
those aren't as bad at smaller venues where it is more indie focused, but I have to imagine over in Ireland you guys don't even have stuff like that, because a lot of places it's just like they do really big cons or really tiny local cons.
We've always done small ones, but there were small ones, but it was never balls out. Like it was ridiculous. I had like the first what would have been the first issue of Death Sworn, like the 20 pages as an issue, and I was selling that for a while. And fucking hell, man, I remember going to these Dublin Comic Arts Fest, and like it's sponsored by political groups. Before I even knew it was being sponsored by fucking political groups, like a sticker on it, and I'm like, this is a real contentious thing I don't agree with. And you never fucking told anybody up front. You couldn't bring a fucking banner. You had to sit on these shitty fucking tables. You had to have some advertisement. And I get there, and I'm here with my fucking heavy metal, blood-soaked fucking Conan in Space book. And it's fucking all these cat women with fucking postcards and paperweights. Like I'm the only fucker here with a comic book in Dublin Comics Art Festival. Like, what the fuck are you guys doing here?
Craft fair.
That's what it was. And I was like, oh, comics has just become this fucking Tumblr word for fucking retards. Like, it's just become this word for fucking people of fucking shit stock. It's just the worst fucking thing ever to associate yourself with. I used to love it. I used to stay away from graphic novel. I used to think graphic novel is the word for fucking the elitist, like the people in my college would always say. And I go,
now
like,
you understand why people use it.
now I'm like, fuck it. I'm staying away from all of it. I'm like, I'm an independent book publisher. I just happen to print graphic novels.
My book just happens to have pictures in it.
Yeah, I'm a picture book publisher.
Yeah, I'm an adult children's book publisher.
It was wild. I remember just sitting there, and dude, every time it was so funny. I'd be sitting in this little fucking a hostel. It was in a hostel, and a hostel was a fucking good venue. I was
Yeah,
like, this should
that
be
rocks.
this should be fun. There was like a bar, there was a little stage. You
Yeah,
could
man.
hang out afterwards, and there's all these people coming in and out. But it's just that no one's going balls out. No one's trying to advertise it or make it look cool. There's like the poster for it is all these weird fucking Tumblr characters that are all fucking like brown and patchy and fucking weird
Yeah.
shit. And I'm like, you're no one's going fucking balls out here. No one.
I
And
was
and
just
I would see
talking.
girls walk in with their fucking burly boyfriends. These girls I would go like, oh, I'm doing this thing, and then this dude would walk in. He's wearing a black hoodie with some fucking skull on it, and he's got a fucking beard. He sees my table. I'm hanging a poster up because that's the only way I could advertise. I hung a poster up over my table of Deathsworn, and they would walk up to me, and I would fucking talk to that guy. They had no clue what that was. I was like a little island of hope for them. Like,
Yeah.
come look at my fucking cool shit,
You
dude.
find a lot of people like that too. Like it's funny because I normally will show up to the cons with like a long sleeve shirt on or like a hoodie or something on, and like within a couple hours I'm sweating and take that shit off and reveal that I'm just covered in tattoos, and then those are like the people that approach me. Like
Yeah,
if I'm at a con with Peter, I'm talking to all the dudes that have like face tattoos and stuff, like, and they like a lot of those people can tell I worked in a shop immediately and like know the industry. Like there's a lot of really simple things to put the feelers out on that just in conversation, but it is so funny because we go up to like middle of nowhere New Hampshire where it's just like really chill people who want to be left alone and do their own thing. So you go up there to sell something. People know what they want, they know what they like, which is why I like the cons up there. The people coming to the comic book convention are, you know, people that tend to keep to themselves, know what they like, and they're coming to the comic convention because they want to get comics and they want to meet specific creators that are there. And a lot of times we would clean up there over going to something like a Boston Comic Con. Like we did Boston the year that they got bought out by Fan Expo, and they literally got bought out the weekend of the show. It was the year my brain's a little bit scrambled with the accident and everything, so it's always hard for me to remember exact years on shit like that. But it was the year Bernie Wrightson died because I was so hyped to meet Bernie. He was a guest at the show, and
that was like
he passed.
2015,
Yeah, he
2016.
passed like 2 weeks before the show, dude, and it was like literally like a blanket of sadness and depression over the entire show. Like all of the other creators I was excited to meet were all excited to just see their friend Bernie Wrightson again, and like thousands of people excited to finally meet Bernie. It was also Stan Lee's last East Coast appearance was what they were billing it as. Before he really started to slip off the deep end and people were like stealing his blood and signing comics with it and all that crazy shit. Yeah, so it was like a big thing. I still got to meet Stan Lee and I straight up had a moment. I've told this on the show before, but he like looked at me and I was like, holy shit, Stan, and like waved at him, and he was probably like 10, 15 feet away from me, and he was like, oh, hey, and raised his hand, waved at me, and then went, Excelsior, and I was like, oh my God, like turned into a giant little kid. And then I turn around and Nien Nub from fucking Star Wars is right behind me waving at him. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that was for Nien Nub. That wasn't for me. Just like walked away. I was like the awkward dude standing in front of their excitement.
Yeah,
What's up, Colin?
there is like this fear. Like, I don't know what it is. It's just the way shit, like the taste or the aesthetic or whatever shit now, where nobody wants to go all out. Nobody does anything that's all out.
Oh,
Everything
yeah.
sort of has this weird mid-tone level, like this.
That's why all the politics is self-defeating, though, is all these, like, whatever side you stand on the aisle or whatever, the super SJW people pushed that they wanted more of these stories in the mainstream and everything. So we got these stories, but they're ham-fisted. They're almost offensive in how poorly they're written, and just like irritating. It shows they don't actually care about the problems they're trying to rally behind. And so it's ham-fisted. It turns off the people that should be into it and the people that they know are going to absolutely hate it. So then the audience shifts and you get a new audience, the very few people that might actually like this stuff. And it just, like, everything keeps growing. It's like a cancer, and it just keeps mutating and mutating. And there's no going back now, because now we're a couple of years down the line, and like the corporate companies have said so many times, like, this is what we're about now. We're about civil rights and all these things, and this is all we're about. And story doesn't come first anymore. It's just these agendas that come first. And if you don't have an agenda, we basically don't want to work with you. So now the first thing in people's minds when they're putting a pitch together is, what is the moral behind this story? And I've never written like that. I tell people, you come up, at least for me, the way I write, you come up with a brilliant idea, something you think is absolutely awesome, something you love, the movie you would want to see, and you start fleshing that out and working on ideas, and just think of it like a giant hole that you're throwing ideas into to fill it up, and eventually that hole's going to be filled, and you're going to be ready to go and whittle that down into a better story. But it's like, I've never done something where, like, this whole story is this moral we're trying to tell here. Is like, I tend to find the heart somewhere in the process. Like,
yeah, that's literally what has happened, because I've been working on Deathsworn since I was like 19 when I came up with just that character without anything else, and I already had everything else. It was just smashing it all together.
And you don't realize there's a story in you at first. You don't know what.
And then yeah, but even more so now, like, the more I get into other stuff, and the more I really go in on my critique, and critiquing the stuff I love and critiquing the shit I hate, and finding, because you have to, it's like you have to train your critique so you can see the gaps you're missing in your own shit, you know?
Yeah.
And where you might be really vapid, and where you might be very egotistical, and you're like, well, I don't want to fucking float my ego at all, and I don't want to be completely vapid. And so, like, as I've been doing it and coming up with it, and also planning into the future, writing the future arcs for Deathsworn.
Yeah,
at least
that's the whole thing. Is you're laying stones for a walkway, and you don't even know where the hell the walkway goes yet. Like, that's one of the hardest things to, like, articulate to people.
Yeah, and then you start to come up with, oh, this is what it's about. Okay, the first arc is about not becoming the monster you're trying to fight.
Exactly.
The second arc is about
change these bricks. We're gonna take a turn here now. Like,
yeah. The second arc is about, well, can you be more than this monster? Like, or are you just limited to this fucking way? Like, are you more than your limitations?
Yep.
And then you figure it all out. It's even like I've been planning other stuff, and this story with those characters in the background of that Tatiana piece, this story that takes, I don't know, like years and years before we meet the Deathsworn universe, and it's about the Darkstar Empire becoming this giant crusading empire. But I didn't want it to be like, oh, they're good guys, and then they turn. It was like, no, they're like, they love their culture, they love their species, they're fucking ethno-fascists, they're completely down on their culture all the time. It's just that they become so corruptible and so wanting to bend reality that reality snaps back and it fucking curses them. And I was like, this is going to be horrible for anybody to read this. So I had to make it like my first true love story, like, where it's not contentious relationship. The two main characters are actually like have a really cute relationship while they're being part of this insane crusading empire. And it's about how that gets corrupted.
It's Mickey and Mallory in outer space. If you've seen Natural Born Killers before.
I haven't, but I don't know if it's going to be like that.
It's a great Oliver Stone. I mean, there's serial killers in it, but that's the whole idea, is the, like, juxtaposition of like they start out with such a solid, like, feels genuinely loving relationship, even though what they're doing is so demented. Like, the glue that holds it together is so insane. They have, like, a genuinely beautiful relationship that eventually devolves into, like, madness, just like the inception of it. But definitely,
I wanted it to
if
be
you're
like,
working on something like that, check that out, because Oliver Stone's just a great filmmaker and storyteller. It'll at least get your brain swelling with all sorts of demented shit.
I wanted it to be like they're like this couple he's like military, she's real homely. They're from the lower end of the civilization, of the Dark Star civilization, and they end up like climbing the ranks and getting into politics. And it's about like they end up in this world where they do not fit in whatsoever, and they slowly start to have to corrupt their character to fit in, while he's off leading these crusades across the galaxy, trying to further the cause of the Empire, and she's at home. She has to keep the politics going, and they both end up corrupting their characters. And when they come back together, they have to they're lying to themselves, and it's slowly, and that just makes it corrupt even more underneath the surface. And then it's just this big, like, romantic downfall, turn into a crazy corrupt emperor, like
you're basically watching yourself slowly slip away. You're kind of aware of it, but you can't really do anything about it because it's for the betterment of your people. You've elected yourself that hero, and you have to stick with it. I love those kinds of stories too. Like, you can't step down from it in the end. Like, you almost, facing the final foe means certain death, but you're gonna do it anyways. Like, that's the fucking definition of a hero, and that works great if it's setting up for a villain or something too, where your heel turn was almost the end. That's kind of what Voidwalker is. Like, I don't know if you've read any of it, but he dies in like the first 5 pages of the book. That's how we wanted to start the series. Was
that definitely sounds like you.
Blasted like Spawn
that's so
style.
Perfect.
And get right into it, because I spent years hearing about people complaining about decompression, and we have all this background story that we can now throw into the ongoing as like one-off issues, where it's like, hey, we're not going to resume the story that we were on the last one. He fought a villain last issue, but now we're going to go a little bit into Parker's childhood, because the whole premise is he's essentially like an orphan and raised by some of his father's associates, and inevitably gets into contract killing just like his father. It's a gumbo of a lot of things I love. It's been compared to Darkness because it's, another dark horror hero, and he happens to be mafia affiliated. And Spawn, because again, dies early on and has like the organic suit. But the suit itself is also a character, speaks and talks kind of like Venom. So we got a lot of comparisons to that early on. But we were like, how do we do this differently? And that's like what the contents of the book are. And the heart of the story, I feel like a lot of readers, if they've fully grasped what I was going for already, then they haven't like talked about it openly in any of the reviews I've seen. But there's a lot of weird layers where you could say Voidwalker, I guess, is like a fairly progressive book. It didn't get any attention for that. I couldn't get press on it at all. It wasn't even tried. Like, I wasn't trying to do that. Like, I wasn't like, I'm going to make a black superhero and people are going to love him because he's black and I'm going to get all sorts of press. This was the hero I wanted to create. Ironically, Voidwalker was originally supposed to come out after Can't Kill Cade, so it would have been the second book I released. It ended up being the first one, so I released it, and then I was like, oh, like, people who hate me might actually still enjoy this book, because there's a point at the end of the day. It's all about, like, becoming your own man, and I didn't intentionally make it like a race thing, but he's literally raised by an old white dude, which was just like, it worked with the story and all the groundwork I had laid already. He's raised by an old white dude who he inevitably has to uh, break the chains from and become his own man. It's about a young man finding his agency in a very bleak world, where he has basically no father or mother figure or any sort of guidance. Basically a kid who drifted through autopilot and very much should have became the villain of a story. He shouldn't be the hero. And that's by the end of issue 4 of Voidwalker. It's almost like the starting point for him. This is your second chance. It's your choice now. Do you become the greatest hero ever and like atone for the things you've done in your past, or do you just embrace the monster that the world's told you that you are and go full tilt with that? And that's what I get to explore in the ongoing series with Christian. But it's like a lot of that never even got seen, or it's subconscious, which is why I love it and why I feel like Voidwalker for me was a success at the end of the day, and I'm very proud of it, because there's more than just the this guy's fighting monsters and becoming a badass going on, without it being like beaten into your head and it's like captions and dialogue in the story. It's like legitimate subtext and other shit going on that you can't just read in the written word on the page.
Yeah. Well, like I've noticed that with going back and redoing the letters like a lot for Deathsworn. It's like I'll go back after like a month or a few months or whatever and look over stuff, and I'd be like, I can add more to this while saying less, you know?
Exactly.
And
like there's those times where like, oh, I nailed the art here. Do I even really need to say something? That happens.
Or yeah, or even a sound effect with that. It's like, that's the goal. It's like, Jesus, if I can make something and color it so that it doesn't need a sound effect, it gets all that impression from it, you know?
Yep.
Because I kind of struggle with that, because I'm kind of going into a more cinematic style with my storytelling. So I'm sort of, without doing the storyboard stuff, because that's what I love about comics, is that you get to, instead of having actual audible volume to play with, you have the volume of the scene to play with, like on the page. That's what gives you all that pace and rhythm. And I love like thumbnailing out a book. Exactly. Like I don't write a script. I'll do a little plot line and I'll write some dialogue, and then I write it on the page. I lay out the 20 pages or whatever, and I start thumbnailing it, and you get that rhythm with every turn page. And you're like, oh, fuck, yes. Like, I fucking love that. That's like the best feeling ever. If comics were just that, I'd be the happiest person ever.
Yeah, but then that's what it used to be like, too. Like Frege says, make your comics as loud as possible. Like, peaks and valleys, but you want those peaks to be as fucking heavy hitting as they could possibly be.
I always think of it like I kind of came up with this little visual metaphor to help me. This might sound really pretentious. I don't know. I've never vocalized this before. It's just a little visual fucking thing in my head. When I think of that, the peaks and valleys, I always think of it as you're rolling a giant snowball up a hill. And so you're rolling this boulder up a mountain, you know, and when you're rolling it up, you're trying to grow it. You're collecting all this dirt, and what that is all like the character, the story, the motivations, you know, all that shit, the setting, blah blah blah. And then you get to the top, and then you get to fucking let it drop, and let it roll.
Did your job right, the momentum takes it.
Yeah, and then when it starts rolling down the other side of the thing, it might lose some bits, you know, because that's the kind of price you pay for having like some vapid, cool, awesome action set piece, you know, because you might kill a fucking character, or you might just drop something, or you might just drop a character's motivation, or why did they do that, you know, just because you're not super omnipotent with your storytelling. But then it's always that, and so you're always trying to build it up bigger than you did before, and then drop it again, and then build it up bigger, and then drop it again, or at least reclaim what you lost when you drop it, you know? That's what that's kind of like the little thing in my head.
A smart way to think about it. It's the same thing as peaks and valleys. It's just a deeper, in-depth look at it. Definitely. I mean, Guyver was another huge influence on it. We've definitely talked about that too. I would say more Guyver than anything else. But again, these are influences. We were still doing our own thing at the end of the day. Expect next issue of Voidwalker in 2044. Actually, I'm hoping to have it out like early 2022. Christian's just got a lot going on.
He's in super demand. I always see he's on tons of stuff.
He's the man. One of the greatest people to work with ever. He's a shitload of fun, brilliant artist, and happy to have him as my co-creator on Voidwalker. But yeah, he's why I always want to say Dr. Satan. Holy shit. I just started following the dude. Lucifer Storm, I think is his name.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Ed Gein
Ed Gein Demon Hunter. I was like, I thought that's like such a cool old school comic.
Yep. I was immediately
some fucker made a comic book in which Ed Gein was the superhero.
Yeah, dude, that is like a drunk idea I had years ago, and I think someone's doing something similar now. It's like Jack the Ripper, Vampire Hunter, I think I saw recently too. But I had an idea years ago where we were going to fold Jack the Ripper into this other story, actually. My first comic I ever published was published over in Finland. Actually out of college. I forgot to mention it earlier when we were talking about that. The artist I was working with is like a big like Mignola fan and does like very Mignola style stuff, but he was in college at the time, did an issue, absolutely crushed it, and his school loved it so much. I think they paid him a little bit. I just told him to keep all of the money, and they published it in like a magazine that they ran at the school, like quarterly, like the whole fucking thing. And it was literally like a week after I'd written it, like we cranked that thing out. It was the first thing I'd ever done. And I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And their school loved it, ran it immediately, made some money, never did anything with it. No one's really seen it. But it was a good time.
Have you ever seen that comic about the Elephant Man?
Yeah.
And it's done like it's a Mignola book.
Yeah, Luke Parker, I think, does that. He's like a big Mignola clone.
Yeah.
But it
looks cool because they did the whole right hand of doom and everything, but it's just this big elephantitis hand.
Yeah, he's definitely distinguished himself too, where he's like definitely in the Mignola style, but I think he's come a long way to not just be a clone, which is why I don't mean that in an offensive way when I say it. But yeah,
there are people who definitely make a career off of being sort of a clone, but do more with it.
Adjacent. I saw Guyver Venom spawn in Voidwalker. Yeah, then it went somewhere I wasn't expecting at all. Yeah, it's also something that's deeply personal to me. It's a story about a father and a son. Like, I won't get too much into that, but you can take a lot from it if you've read the whole thing. And I'm excited to expand on more and more of that, and sort of the ideas of absence and loss and abandonment and all these other weird things. Your brain explores a lot of strange shit when you think you're dead for like a year. Yeah. I don't remember where I was going with that beforehand. Yeah, like I'm working on a script right now that's literally from my accident, and like what if a superhero were sort of struggling with the same thing I am? And everybody's
what happened
like,
to your accident? I've never heard of the accident.
Dude, I was in a roll accident a couple years back, like the day before Christmas, like the middle of the night going into Christmas Eve. And we rolled. I hit my head really hard. We rolled like twice. The driver was knocked unconscious completely for like 2 minutes. I had to bust out the windshield from inside the cab of the truck we were in with my fists. I broke like all of my knuckles, fucked up my hands pretty much permanently. I had like pretty bad shakes beforehand. Don't know what from, just like blood pressure or whatever. But now my hands like shake fairly violently on a bad day from all of that. When we got out of the truck through the hole I had busted in the windshield, cops came around the corner with a gun pointed at us because they thought we were on drugs and about to run from the scene. I was covered in my own blood. The first 2 minutes while my buddy was knocked out, he was head down in a pile of broken beads of glass because his window had exploded. So I couldn't see from his neck up, and I thought he had been decapitated because the last thing I saw was him going out of my window because his seatbelt popped when we were rolling. Yeah. His seatbelt popped. He went across my seat into the passenger side, and his head went out my window while I was smoking a cigarette. And I thought it just got like ripped off when we were rolling on the road on my side. And all I remember before I hit my head was I grabbed onto him and I fucking hugged that dude as hard as I have ever hugged a human being in my life, and pulled him back in, I guess, and hit my head, and I went out. And when I woke up, he was completely out, and the car was upside down. I was covered in glass. When we finally got out of the car and EMS and the firefighters were there, one of my buddies is one of the firefighters that was helping us, our buddy Charlie. And he was talking to another firefighter, and the firefighter said something like, had I used my lighter for light in the car, we might have just exploded. Because evidently there was some gas leaking. So afterwards, for months, I was having like weird ass nightmares and stuff like that. Was like super depressed and fucked up from it. Talked to professionals and never was officially diagnosed, but we explored the idea of like an early onset of Cotard syndrome, which isn't even recognized by most psychiatrists, I guess, from what I've gathered. I didn't have health insurance at the time, so I was literally going through like a really big pain in the ass system to talk to these pro bono people. But it's also referred to as Cotard's delusion, and has since been on, like, I think Hannibal did an episode about a character that had Cotard's. But you basically have like a traumatic brain injury and convince yourself that you're dead. And you're floating through like an afterlife scenario. Because 2 days, like a couple, not 2 days, it was a couple of days after the accident, because it was over Christmas vacation. Whenever school got started back up, the day school started back up, there's a bus stop across from my house, and there were two moms waiting for their kids, and one of the moms was talking to the other one and said, did you hear about the two teenagers that died in the truck accident at the end of the road? And they were talking about my accident, and they were just misinformed. Nobody had died in the accident. We were completely fine. But that like completely set my brain off. And for almost a year, I was having like nightmares about burning alive, all sorts of insane shit. Got really bad for a while, but that was a while back. And then I got my shit together, and things really took off. And now I've just learned to channel it into my work. But we talked about it the other night, again last night. That's why my memory is a little bit weird sometimes, and I'll mix up dates. That's one of the worst parts about it. Like I have to write.
That's
stuff.
Not that bad.
Well,
mix up dates.
It's bad when like how amazing. Like I had an eidetic memory before my accident. Like I could like draw you pictures of like what we were doing that day. Like like it was a substantial drop in like my memory capacity overall. It comes and goes now, but smoking actually helped with that. Weed, obviously, not cigarettes. That's retarded. But yeah, I joked that I think I might have Kinnisoned myself, but because I didn't have health insurance for a while, I didn't go like officially find out. but like I have damage to my brain from like middle school like pee-wee football, so I can't imagine the violent black ice car accident I had is done anything much better for it. But it was a dark time, and I got through it. Pete knows all about it too. I actually sort of, when I pitched Can't Kill Cade and Voidwalker to Pete learned the whole story, and I told him that I'd been working on a book for a really long time that I haven't even showed my girlfriend. And like my girlfriend was there for the accident. The accident happened like a couple 100 feet from our house. That was one of the most insane parts about it, was we were so close to the house.
Dude, that's how it always happens. My brother was in a car crash outside my house,
and we were stone sober, dude. My buddy was just in the area. It was winter time, and he knew I was like working and drinking all day, and he was just stopped by because he was in the area doing snow removal. And he's like, "Hey, dude, I was in the area. We're talking on the front porch. I'm smoking a cigarette with him, and I was like running low on smokes. And he was like, "Oh, I can bring you down to the gas station real quick." Brought me to the gas station, looped back around to get home. Coming down a hill, hit a patch of black ice going 5 miles an hour, rocketed to like 60 miles an hour and just spun out, hit the curb and went 2 times rolling, almost went through the side of a house, but somehow turned just out of the way of it. We cleared a house by like a foot.
Jesus.
Yeah, we almost took out the first floor of a 3-floor, 3-family home. We would have killed a bunch of people. It was like the day before Christmas in the middle of the night, and I was having the weirdest nightmares, and it's all in this book that I'm working on. I've literally spun into like a narrative story. But there's like a mom and kid on the 3rd floor that were just like in the window, and the kid was like screaming and crying the whole time because he didn't know what was going on. He's like 4 years old, and I was like, I destroyed that kid's Christmas. And that was like one of the things I had nightmares about for like a while, was just like a screaming little kid crying, and I'm in a truck.
He was waiting for Santa's sleigh.
Yeah, and Santa rolls up drunk. Like, "Hey, kid, I forgot your presents."
He crashes the car next
and
door.
2 cops come running out of his backyard with guns pointed at us, and I'm just a giant bearded guy who is all confused and incoherent, stumbling around covered in my own blood. Like, it looked like I fled a murder. Like, that was the other thing. Since it was so close to home, I EMS put a bunch of like butterfly bandages on my knuckles and stuff like that, and a bunch of them kept saying that it was impossible that I busted out of the cab, until the cops were like, "No, we saw him climb out of it." Like, and if you look at his hands, he clearly busted out of the cab.
Yeah, you got that Incredible Hulk thing going on.
Oh yeah, I like raged out because when my buddy woke up, he said, I guess he said, "Ow, my ass," but I thought he said, "I smell gas," and all I thought was, I'm not burning alive in here. And I'm like violently claustrophobic already, so we're in like a little truck cab, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna get burnt. Time to light this motherfucker up. And I just started punching the windshield as hard as I could. And I remember it was like 10 punches, and then that thing fucking exploded like something out of a movie. Like, my fist just went right fucking through it. It like would not crack or anything. And then just like, you know, the scene in, if you've ever seen Pineapple Express, when Franco kicks the hole in the windshield and gets his foot stuck, it was like that, just like a perfect fist just went right through it, like somebody had cut out a hole for it. And I was just like, oh shit. And then I just grabbed both sides of that hole and started ripping it back and forth, and ripped almost the entire front windshield in half. Like, my buddy Drew has the photos of the truck. I'll see if he can send some to me.
Yeah, that tempered glass shit is like that.
Yeah, dude, it was like there's just a lining of tape on it.
Yeah, no, we do my like family business. Like, when my dad started, it's all metal work and like engineering and shit. So there's a lot of like glass stairways and, you know, like glass inserts in steel. And dude, if you fucking you tighten one bolt like tighter than you should, one tiny little fucking nick, and the whole thing is just gone. Yep. Like, the entire thing, and it's not just gone. It doesn't just crack. It's like a bomb. Like, it shoots everywhere. Like, have you ever gotten a crack in a fucking bulb? like in a regular, like not an LED bulb, but like a regular fucking normal like
Oh
bulb.
yeah, where they straight up explode and shoot like a piece out.
Yeah, and if it gets too hot, like that happened to me, and like right where I draw, above my computer, above all my screens, above all my shit, literally at the
Jesus.
back of my head, these two bulbs, because it was one of those two bulb mounted fucking things. And I guess one of them had a crack. I don't know what the fuck it was. But yeah, one day, like they work good for months, and then one day you have the light on for too long and it gets too hot and they just fucking explode at the back of your head.
I was just telling my girlfriend about that because she was like, "Oh, the house, we should do a room with like Edison bulbs." And I was like, I knew this was gonna happen, and I'm like explaining to her like those old bulbs also like pop and shit like that.
Oh yeah.
And I was
Just
like,
get fucking LED, whatever the fuck. Just like
yeah, I was like, I don't give a shit. Like, it's not gonna scare me or anything, but be prepared for it. It's like girl who like hears the refrigerator running and freaks out. I was like, oh fuck, I'm gonna get more guns, and she was just like, oh god, no more World War II guns for now.
No more grandfather guns, illegal guns.
Yeah, I want something I can carry regularly.
I always get one of these kicks, you know, to do the whole arm yourself shit, especially
Yeah,
over here. And then I'm like, I don't know if I'll just cause more trouble for myself if I
probably.
start getting knives or fucking whatever. But something that you wouldn't notice, like a wallet chain
Yeah,
that like can very easily just been turned into a fucking knuckle duster.
it's like a good. If you want to go real cheap, a good Bic lighter is great for that. Help you square your knuckles up real nice. You just hold it in the palm of your hand
That is such
and break a
the
motherfucker's jaw.
yeah. But I'm just thinking of all the people I've known that have told me that, and they've always been the sketchiest fuckers ever.
Yeah. It's like if you don't know how to throw a punch, start gripping a Bic lighter and punching a wall.
I always have these dreams. I mean, I haven't had one for fucking forever, but whenever I have a dream where I'm in a fight, it's always like a group fight. It's always like 6 guys that just appear out of nowhere and start kicking the fuck out of me. But it's always slow motion. Like I'm getting the fuck kicked out of me in real time, and all my punches are slow motion, and I'm missing everybody. And it's
My
like
timing is all off.
dude, it's insane. And I always wake up and I'm like, I could feel bad. I go out to the fucking punch, and I have to like remind my body that I can do this.
You can fight. You're not that slow. I have a gun.
It's terrifying though. I read a thing because I was trying to find out what the reason for that is, you know, because I always look up weird dream shit like that.
I never know what Colin is baiting me into. That is probably not even a real gun. It's probably like
Get
a
an
sex
own
toy.
gun, owns penis. But yeah, I read this thing where it said, like, know the way you never really run in your dreams, you sort of float.
Yeah.
Like when you go to run somewhere, you just sort of like hover.
Or you're just there.
Yeah, exactly. This thing on a dream said that the circuit that in your head that like measures the how much you have to exert to do a physical action kind of gets turned off in your brain, because
Yeah.
you'd get like the impulses would wake you up. And so if you're very familiar with certain actions, then you're not you sort of you have the circuitry for the impulse to engage in those actual physical actions. And so when that gets shut down in your dream, it gives you that feeling of like hovering or slow motion or whatever, so that you don't wake up from like the sheer impulse of the physical action. Like, but then there's
Yeah.
people that fucking move around in their sleep, and that's, I don't know.
Oh, I sleep like a corpse. Like, you would not know I wasn't a dead guy. Be like, shouldn't we get this thing out of here? Like, yeah.
Sometimes I
Sorry.
get lazy in my sleep.
Oh,
where, yeah, I'll feel it now where it's like
sleep paralysis.
no, it's so weird because it's like it's like sometimes I'll be like, I'll go to bed knowing that I don't want to be bothered making my bed the next morning. So it's like I go to bed and it is like I'm a dead man. Like I will just sleep straight. I will not move. And when I wake up, I will wake up like in the position I remember closing my eyes at. And I literally just have to sidestep out and, put the rest of the other side of the cover down, and then the bed is already made. It's like nobody slept in it.
That's like how the Terminator sleeps, Carl. Jesus Christ.
But sometimes I get it and I'm like, I have to cover up all
I
over the
have no
fucking thing, and
feelings.
I have
I do
shit
not
everywhere.
deserve this sleep.
But yeah,
oh my god. I thought you were gonna
I'm
be
trying
like,
to
when I go to
cut
bed, I
like
dream about dreaming. That's how lazy I am. Like I go to
I'm
bed and I
cutting like
dream of
5
taking a
minutes
nap.
out of my day.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah,
if I
you
could
don't
sleep
plug in
like a
your power
bat, I
cord?
would.
Lost Boys style. Oh,
Just
hell
fucking
yeah, man.
shitting and pissing
Yeah, all
on
down
top
your
of myself.
back.
Just put a bucket under me. Don't wake me up.
You got like one of them horse troughs hanging over your junk so you can catch everything. The Owen gun, which was known officially as the Owen machine carbine, was an Australian submachine gun designed by Evelyn Owen in 1939. Oh, I've probably seen this then, and just the name didn't ring any bells. Yeah, a nap within a nap within a nap. It's Inception, but at the end of it, they're not killing anybody or stealing anything. They're just still sleeping.
Well,
I'm
I've
that
definitely
kind of
had those
lazy.
like those nights where you're like hungover or exhausted, or have you ever had like cold sweats?
Oh yeah.
Like insomnia sort of cold sweats where if a single piece of the cover is over you, you are boiling, sweating, hot,
Yeah.
uncontrollably. If it's off you, you are freezing, like teeth chattering cold.
Yeah.
You're just up walking around. You're
Dude, I
eating
will do
food.
that and wake up like covered in sweat and feel like somebody just poured like a glass of ice cold water all over me. But I'm like, I was under a blanket. How was the blanket not wet? And I'm like,
Yeah,
what happened? I did
you
that
have those
drunk
mini
recently and I thought
dreams.
I had like drunk pissed all over myself and was just like, this did not happen. And it didn't, thank God. I would totally be like, I fucking pissed myself all drunk, but I was like, oh my God, no. And I was just like sweating profusely. And when I got up and looked at the heat, my girlfriend had turned the heat all the way up in our apartment, like as high as it goes. And I was like, holy shit, woman. Like, I passed out at like 8 o'clock that night and woke up to like being in a sauna. That was the other day when it was snowing out after weeks of it being 70 degrees here.
Yeah, I blacked out one time at home. I was home drinking. I was on like an Ethan stream for a bit, and then I blacked out afterwards.
Oh, excellent.
And my brother came home like at like 2 a.m. and the house was just fucking insane. And I don't remember any of it. He just found me on the ground, like underneath the ladder from the attic.
I had
And
a roommate like that. We used to find like half of like a slice of like American cheese on like the floor in the kitchen, or like multiple slices of American cheese, because he would just like go downstairs and start eating shit out of the fridge, but be so drunk you wouldn't realize he'd be dropping shit all over the place. The drummer I told you about before too, in my old band that got like crazy with heroin. He came over to our house one time. I forget where we went for the party, but we went out to some friend's place for some big banger, and we all got like obliterated except for our buddy who drove his van, and he was like, "I'm gonna DD for us tonight." He was more of like a weed smoker than anything, so he got crazy with that. Drove all of our drunk asses back to our apartment. My drummer crashed at our place that night in the middle of the night. at the time, me and my roommate were literally like sharing a room. We were like young idiot bachelors, and it was like, yo, if you have a girl over to bang, get out of the room. It was basically like a frat house. We had a bunch of dudes living in a very tiny apartment. And we're both sleeping in our room that night, like passed out drunk. And I remember waking up and grabbing a knife because I thought someone was breaking in, and it was our buddy coming up the stairs, dick out, pissing all up the stairs, pissed on our bedroom door, kicked in the door, started pissing all over our room. And then finally like settled in the corner of the room where he proceeded to continue to pee for like another minute straight until there was like a full puddle in the corner of our room. Our neighbors moved out like a month later complaining that their house was like just smelled like piss constantly. So we assumed that a lot of it like seeped down into the floor and got into their place, and they couldn't figure out why the place smelled like fermented drunk guy piss. Thank God my name was never on the lease at that place. Yeah, it was like wicked out of hand, but yeah, he pissed all over that place, and it was because he was so blackout drunk. He thought he was just walking to the bathroom, which was upstairs and right next to our room, and then he thought the corner of our room was like right where the toilet was. He was just like super confused and drunk, and then he just laid down at the feet of our beds, like on the floor, just like where he had pissed, and went to sleep. And when he woke up in the morning, he was like, "Oh, it happened again." And then we were like, "What?" And we found out he has done this at someone else's apartment before, where he just gets so blackout drunk he turns into a giant piss baby. And it was gross. We made him clean like the entire apartment.
Dreams, man. I have a pee dream. I wake up and I fucking thank God that I didn't cross over into real life.
Yeah, right.
Seriously,
my
it's
dick
like
didn't Freddy Krueger me,
dude. That that is like the most real nightmare there ever is the pee dream.
Yeah, man.
Like it's so anxiety provoking.
That's like
you wake up and you're like, if you wanted to wake up, they should find a way to make an alarm, like in your brain.
Yeah, get blasted and go home with a lady, and you just piss her bed. Legend. Definitely getting a call back.
That's when you have to move country if you do that.
Yeah, right. You have to kill that lady.
Yeah, there's no other choice.
Or yourself. There's no other choice.
You have to fucking change your name.
That's how serial killers are made, ladies and gentlemen. When you get too drunk and you piss the bed at a girl's house.
Or have you ever like, you wake up
pissing all over the place, singing Fireman Sam theme song? That would have at least been funny. I just remember waking up almost stabbing my buddy with his dick out and then like yelling at him and him being completely incoherent.
Yeah, it's almost worse. If it was someone robbing your house, like that's better. That's better than just someone and like pissing all over.
Oh yeah, if it was someone robbing the house, that guy was not making it out alive. There's literally like 8 dudes and like 2 or 3 of them were my size. Like you would have to be basically literally a silverback gorilla breaking into our home if you're gonna win that fight. Like my worst nightmare has always been thinking it's a fart when it isn't. Yeah, that'd be hilarious. I had this dream I was farting like crazy last night, and I woke up this morning, and let's just say I gotta buy a new bed.
Yeah, dude, the worst. I mean, not the worst. It's not as bad as pissing, but when you sort of wake up and you don't know where you are and you vomit, and you're in like someone else's house, and then you're like,
that's the best.
I gotta clean this up before other people get up and fucking notice my shame. And fucking...
Dude.
They like come down and it's like their bin is like filled with fucking kitchen paper and toilet rolls and shit.
We went to this party at this chick's house. This is how wild I was. I don't know why you throwing up on other people's floors reminded me of it, but I had to be like 19 or 20 at the time, not even legally old enough to drink. We went to this chick's place. I don't know if it was like a condo or an apartment or what. It was at Yukon. And we were like not I wasn't going to UConn, at least. I was there with some friends that did go to UConn, but we were at this chick's place. It was like a really nice condo or something. She's talking about how her parents had paid for it and everything. And it's like a banger during spring weekend, if anybody's familiar with that. It's like the big party weekend, sort of like spring break for UConn. University of Connecticut. And we were in her house. I don't remember what the hell happened, but she was like complaining about people like wrecking the place or something like that, or leaving like Solo cups everywhere. So me and a bunch of people just started spitting on the hardwood floors.
That's just fucking. That's just mean.
Yeah, it was evil. It was I think, some of the most reckless shit I've ever done. But you were talking about puking on the floor and it being the worst. I was a bastard. I was a drunk bastard very young. I learned to not be a piece of shit as my brain developed. But yeah, she was a bitch, though. It wasn't like it was unprovoked. It was something going on. She's being ridiculous. It's like, you can't have a banger at your house and not expect a bunch of people to be there drinking liquor. That's just how it goes when you open your house up to a college-wide party. It's literally like news footage. I'll have to see if I can find the clip. One of the years we went, my buddy Adam is drinking a pint of grain in the background during like a news broadcast. Like, there's a guy on scene talking about how spring weekend has gotten out of control, and my buddy Adam is drinking a pint of grain and then falls face first and smashes his face on a curb and is just out cold. Just in the back room, or in the background, face down on the curb, passed out with a bottle of grain in his hand, because he basically funnels the whole thing on camera to be a cool guy. And you can hear like me, my buddy Nolan, and I think my buddy John is there too, just like off screen laughing. I'll have to see if Adam still has that too, because that shit was like one of the funniest things. Spring weekend was like where you go to find out if you're going to die. Before apps existed, there was this thing called bangers. My worst. We are having my spine surgically removed and feeling everything until I didn't feel anything at all. That's some dark shit.
I had a really dark dream. I don't know what it says about me, but it's been one of those ones that I sort of wrote it down afterwards, and I can remember. Like, I could paint it if I wanted to. I can remember the colors, I can remember the characters, I can remember the machines, I remember everything that it was, and it was really fucking weird, and everything was sort of abstract and grimy, and it sort of looked like a grim, dark, like fantasy painting, and it was. I was in this hallway, and I was in this contraption where like my legs were spread and they were like being held, and I was nude, and it was in this hallway that was like a church, and it was all like this muddy green gray color, and there were these weird floating nuns with these pointy heads, and they were all super old, and they kind of looked like monsters, and they were all talking around me and like looking down at me, and I was looking up, stuck in this position with a fucking gag in my mouth. And I looked down at my hand, and they took out this like cartoonish needle that had green shit in it. And they stuck it into my forearm, but it was so big that it went through my forearm, like out the other side. And then I could see the green shit that was supposed to go into my body started to drip out the other end of my hand. So I wasn't feeling, it was gone. Like, whatever I was supposed to get from this, I wasn't going to get. And they said that to me. Like, one of them said to me, "This is really going to hurt me."
What the fuck, Carl? You're scaring me right now.
This is 100% real. I had this dream.
It's like a bad acid trip.
I had this dream. That's why I'm not going near shit. I'm not going near heavy shit. Ever. And
we're gonna get Carl so smoked out when it comes to America.
They took out this like contraption that was like a spreader thing, and they inserted it in my backpack passage in my ass. And then
your back pocket.
No, in my back package. in my asshole, and they expanded it, and I could feel and I could hear like my whole hip area, all my bones breaking, like
I'm gonna
cracking
barf.
open completely, right? And I was like, and I couldn't scream and I couldn't do anything. I was looking around, and this was happening to there was like hundreds of people in this whole, all dudes, and this was happening to them.
They gave Carl a birth canal. Oh, with a whole group of dudes? Jesus.
Yes, it was insane.
Package Metatron's losing it.
But it's fucking. Then one of them took out a baby, like a newborn baby, like a 9-month-old baby, and then they put it inside me like I was pregnant.
God.
And then they took out the spreader thing, and then I woke up, and I was like, I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's like I have to bear some responsibility in my life. I don't know. I cannot understand what that means. But it was that happened to me. I can fucking paint it. I could draw. I could do like weird abstract creepy paintings of this shit.
You're worried about releasing your baby and no one getting it, so you want to stuff it back up in you.
No, I think it was more like a punishment. Like it was I'm
kidding.
I had to bear this burden.
Oh my god, dude!
And the burden was like of the kid of whatever that was.
I think that's what we're gonna end on today. I said I was only gonna go for like a half hour or so. We went an hour and 15, and that's a banger. I don't think you can top that.
I should have saved that for a fucking podcast.
Yeah. Oh, you can always bring it back up. Holy shit, that was intense. Yeah. Dudes, thanks for hanging out. Marinate on that one and let us know what you think. Let's see if we can figure out what Carl's dreams meant. But yeah, till next time, stay girthy, dudes.